Ocean Labs. Deep ideas. Simple knowledge.
So what happens when one country's military goes in and captures another country's sitting president? I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a movie, right? But this actually happened, and it sent absolute shockwaves across the globe. We're going to break down exactly how it all went down and what it means for, well, every. Picture this. It's January 3rd, 2026. It's still dark, pre-dawn. Most of the world is still asleep. But in Caracas, Venezuela, history is being rewritten. And not with a pen, but by force. This is where our story really kicks off. Okay, so how on earth did something this massive, this unprecedented, actually happen? Well, it all started with a mission. And you've got to admit, the codename sounds like it was ripped straight from a Hollywood blockbuster. Operation Absolute Resolve. Let's dive into what this mission was all about. The objective was, wow, it was stunningly direct. A U.S. military operation on foreign soil with one goal and one goal only, to capture Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro. I mean, think about that. An action like this against a recognized head of state, it's practically unheard of. So let's break it down to the basics, right? The who? We're talking elite U.S. Special Forces. Think Delta Force. The what? The capture of President Maduro himself. And the where? A presidential compound right in the heart of Caracas. You put those three things together, and you've got yourself a geopolitical earthquake. And get this, the scale of this thing was just immense. We're talking more than 150 aircraft involved. So, this wasn't some quiet, small-scale snatch and grab. No way. This was a full-on military assault designed to just completely overwhelm any possible defense. The whole operation was just defined by its speed and its precision. Everything from start to finish went down in a super tight 2-hour window, and all of it under the cover of darkness. A highly coordinated strike right in the heart of Venezuela's capital city. Just incredible. All right, so we know the plan, but the big question is, how did they actually pull it off? Let's get into the capture itself, the play-by-play of the raid. So the attack basically unfolded in 4 quick phases. First, U.S. planes and helicopters breached Venezuelan airspace, taking out their air defenses. Just like that, they owned the sky. Then, on the ground, Delta Force commandos stormed the presidential compound. Then came step 3. They got their targets. Nicolás Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were secured. And finally, the extraction. They were whisked away to a U.S. warship and from there flown to New York. Now, from the American perspective, the mission was a stunning success, at least in its execution. The initial reports coming out from U.S. officials were pretty clear. The operation was completed with 0 American fatalities, not a single one. But, the raid itself, that was really just the beginning of the story. The capture of Maduro kicked off this huge chain reaction, a cascade of legal, political, and human consequences that rippled across the entire globe. And just like that, the scene shifts. We go from a military compound in Caracas to a federal courthouse in New York City. Think about that whiplash. Maduro, who just hours before was the president of Venezuela, is now in U.S. federal custody about to face the American justice system. And as soon as he arrived, Maduro made his own position crystal clear. He didn't say he was a defendant. He declared himself a prisoner of war. Right away, he's framing this whole thing not as a criminal case, but as an act of war between 2 countries. The U.S. government, though, they saw it very, very differently. To them, this wasn't about war, it was about crime. The charges against him come from a long-standing indictment, and they are severe. We're talking narco-terrorism, basically terrorism funded by drug trafficking, and a bunch of other drug conspiracies. And, for the record, Maduro has pleaded not guilty to all of it. Meanwhile, back in Caracas, the government didn't just collapse into chaos. No, a constitutional succession happened almost immediately. The vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, was sworn in as the acting president. This move ensured that the existing regime would continue, for now at least. But remember how the U.S. reported 0 American fatalities? Well, the story on the ground in Caracas was very different. Reports started to come out about dozens of casualties. Not just Venezuelan and allied Cuban soldiers who were killed, but civilians too. People just caught in the crossfire. And this really gets to the heart of the conflict, doesn't it? You have 2 completely different stories. For Venezuela, this was a blatant, illegal violation of their sovereignty. For the US, it was simply an action to enforce criminal accountability. I mean, these are two worldviews that just cannot be reconciled. So all of this leads us to the final and maybe the most important question of all. Has this one action created a dangerous new precedent for the entire world? And believe me, this is the debate that is absolutely raging in diplomatic circles right now. Did the US even have the right to do this? Critics are pointing to the UN Charter, which is all about protecting national sovereignty, and they're quick to say there was no UN mandate for this. But supporters, well, they argue that the ongoing criminal indictments against what they call a corrupt regime completely justified such an extraordinary move. So for now, this is where the immediate story pauses. Nicolás Maduro, yanked from power, is in the United States, waiting for his court proceedings. The future of his entire country is hanging in the balance, and honestly, the whole world is watching to see what happens next. So what do you think? Was this just a one-off, an extreme event that will never be repeated? Or has the entire rulebook for international law just been torn up for good? That's the huge question the world is now forced to grapple with.